Hey guys, here again with another Shirogorov knife. This one is on the Russian Overkill, one of the prototypes that was available for open bid at Blade Show 2019. The Russian Overkill, of course, is a collaboration with Sergei Shirogorov and RJ Martin on his Overkill model. And again, since this is a prototype, this knife came out before the production version, which I had previously done a knife notes video in the past. So I thought that I might take the opportunity to not only talk about the interesting materials of this knife, but also kind of relate it back to the production version of the Russian Overkill and see what small changes there are to this knife, since there are a few. But let's go ahead and first take a look at the coin here. And you can see that the blade steel here is S125V in a satin finish. We also have zircuti for the handles with zirconium accents. And for the pivot system, we have roller bearing system, RBS. Now, again, since I did a knife notes video on the production version, just go through the size overview for those guys who didn't see it. But again, the F95 is pretty much in the same ballpark for size in terms of handle length and overall length. The F95, due to the blade shape, does have a little bit more cutting edge since the flipper tab is not nearly as large. But for all intents and purposes, this knife is pretty much the same as an F95 in size. Now, when it comes to the weight though, I'm expecting this to be quite a bit heavier given the fact that there is so much zirconium being used, not only in the backspacer, but also in the handle itself. I believe the production version was around 4.7 ounces. Taking a look here, it looks like this one is 5.38, so almost 5.4 ounces. So a noticeable difference, again, basically due to the accent material and also the fact that there is zirconium mixed into the handle itself and the different layers of titanium. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the blade here, we can see that we have a wonderful satin finish on not only the blade flats, like on the production version, but also on the primary bevel as well. This has been completely hand satined by Sergei, and many other areas as well, including inside the jipping here has been polished, and also on the blade spine itself, which is an area that, you know, a lot of makers really don't tend to finish when they're doing complete hand satins. As you can see here, we do have the logo on the blade itself on both sides for this Shirogorov logo and RJ Martin. This is something I found interesting, especially considering that on most of the full custom Sergei usually opts to not have any laser or deep engraving on the blade itself, instead usually putting on the handles. I did notice this for the prototypes for the Russian Hokkaido, and just you know, customs in general. The blade steel, again, like other customs, is on the pivot area here as opposed to on the primary bevel of the show side, or sorry, lock side, like it is on the productions. So I found it interesting that for the custom Overkill that he decided to put that the logo of the makers on the blade itself. Now, the blade stock is still 4 millimeters thick like the production, so nothing has changed there in that respect. And also, of course, that iconic RJ flipper tab has remained unchanged itself as well from the prototype to the production version as well. Taking a look at the handle here, you can see that zirconium pivot collars. We also have that nice radial milling that goes across the zircuti here. It's a little bit harder to see compared to the production version, which just has normal titanium, of course, since the zircuti is quite a wonderful material with a lot of pattern going on. But I really love this choice of material here. I believe this pattern for the mokutai, or sorry, zircuti is called lava. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if that's the exact name, but since there are so many patterns, but I really love the choice of material here, and I really love how the zircuti, the different layers, and we also get different levels of blackness as well. We have some really solid blacks and some grays as well, and they really catch the light in different ways to really give you a nice effect when you're looking at it. So really vivid colors here as well with the blues and purples. Just like the production, we have a completely screwless rear half of the handle here. If we take a look at the lock side, you can see the blind screws that go across the backspacer into the show side handle. And of course, it being custom, they are duck foot screws in zirconium that are satin finished on the top. Really nice touch there. That pattern again continues across the bottom half of the handle on the lock side as well. But of interesting note, we can see here that in the lock bar cutout, on the production version, that radial pattern continues inside the cutout, but on the prototype here, we don't see that pattern at all. It's just completely smooth here. I think that's interesting. I really wonder if that pattern was added on afterwards by Sergey, thinking that it would better complete the look of the bottom half of the handle, but it is absent here on the custom that we do see on the production. Otherwise, the clip is the same. The lanyard hole is still in the same area. Personally, I really wish that this lanyard hole could be integrated better. I mean, I talked about this in the Russian Overkill production knife notes video. But yeah, that and also the fact that there are two screws here. I really find that interesting considering the fact that I can't think of any other modern Shirogorov knife that has a backspacer, but there's usually a hidden pin here that retains the front half of the backspacer. But on the Overkill, he chose to use two screws. So I'm really wondering why that was necessary, given the fact that the Quantum, which still has this backspacer design, this sunken backspacer design, which we'll talk about in a bit, has a pin and a rear screw. So lastly, going on to the backspacer here, we can see that we have that faux floating backspacer, and this is something that did change noticeably compared to the production model. As you can see here, the floating backspacer effect is quite noticeable here. The gaps are wider, significantly wider than what you see on the production version. You can see here, if you put my hand underneath and get the camera at the right angle, you can see my hand underneath through the lines here on each side of the backspacer. So I'm very curious about that, really what had changed in the production. The production has gaps that are more akin to the Quantum, and the Quantum floating backspacer effect is pretty much the same from the customs to the production. So I'm very interesting here that the prototype of the Overkill has larger gaps for that floating backspacer effect. But otherwise, this backspacer again is zirconium. I believe this isn't that normal satin finish that you see like on the screws here or on most other zirconium backspacers. So I believe this is just a tumbled zirconium that has then been blackened. We take a look here, you can see that backspacer captures the blade just like on the production version as well. And very deep U-notch cut here for the backspacer, especially when you compare it to other knives such as the Neon Zero. It just looks much more dramatic to me with that zirconium popping out at you. Taking a look at the inside of the backspacer, you can see that the knife was made in 2019, so just right before Blade Show as well. And also we have satin finishing here on the inside of the handle, right on the high points of the milling for the internal pockets. Now this is very interesting because it looks, when you satin finish the zircotie, you can still see the pattern of the zircotie, which I think is really cool. It has a really nice satin effect, but you can still see the pattern in different layers of the zircotie as well. If you take a look here at the back, you can also see that this is marked Proto number 3, so this is the third prototype. I'm not really sure how many were made, how many prototypes, but I have seen at least 3 or 4 customs. So I believe those are all prototypes that were made before the production run was started. And lastly, something very interesting as well is if you take a look here, you can see that we have the symbol for single row roller bearings here. Now, the coin did say RBS, and if you take a look at a custom division knife, like this Hation here, you can see that it is using that same roller bearing system. Now, Sergey is very famous for using double row roller bearings on his customs, and as you can see here, this F7, a little bit hard to see, has that double row roller bearings marking here. And this actually isn't the first time that Sergey has used single row roller bearings in his customs. The Russian Hokkaido as well seems to use only single row roller bearings. So I think this is just the fact that these knives are prototypes and not full-on customs designed by Sergey. So because it's a prototype of what is eventually to be the production, it does have the same bearing system as the production version of that knife, which of course, I use the term production loosely for the collaborations, since they really are finished to the level of custom divisions, which also have single row roller bearings. But that is interesting to note that the collaboration knives don't have the same bearing system as Sergey's own full customs. But otherwise, the action on this knife is incredibly amazing. Again, I really don't like to speak too much about individual knives, since especially for the productions or the limited knives, everybody's knife is a little bit different, but this one right here is just spectacular. The action on it has that traditional RJ snap. That huge flipper tab allows you to get incredible leverage on the blade, and when I flip an RJ, it really feels to me like you're snapping a carrot. It has just a satisfying flipping action that RJs are really known for, and the fact that we have the same exact flipper tab design here means that you're getting pretty much pretty much a very similar feel. I don't want to offend any RJ Martin purists by saying that the action is exactly the same, but man, it is pretty close. This knife as well also is just incredibly smooth as well. Those satin finished flats, the fact that Sergey has spent extra time tuning this knife, it's really incredible. And I'm just very impressed with the mechanics of this knife as well. So as you can see here, it really doesn't take much to have the blade drop shut. But overall, it's been a really great opportunity to take a look at this knife. I should have said this at the beginning, I always forget. This knife is on loan from a friend who had recently purchased it. So I really do appreciate him sending the knife my way so that I could do a video on it as well. But again, it's really cool to be able to take a look at both the prototype, the custom version of a knife that I've already done. So hopefully I'll be on the lookout for more prototypes of collaborations so I can compare the two. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.